try to, there we go. All right. I was more nervous now than I actually did when I asked Brittany to marry me, so anyways. All right, so if you can turn to Matthew 13. I preached this one time on a night bus, and I think Brittany's the only one who's heard me. And if you don't know what a night bus is, I know a lot of you do, but what a night bus is we go to church and we bring some teenagers with us, and afterwards we have to take them home to Chicago, and it gets really wild. Everyone's, standing on the seats. Everyone's pounding on the back of the bus. The lights are flicking on and off. By the time I get up to the preach, my shirt's untucked, my tie's gone. I don't even know where it's at. So I want to reenact that tonight. All right, so we'll be in Matthew 13, and we're going to start in verse 3. And it says, "And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up, because they had no deepness of the earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But others fell into good ground and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. So tonight I'm just going to give us 4 really quick things, how we can, those seeds that we get, how we can have fruit that multiplies. And when I was thinking about this, I was watching the game the other night, and I always thought about something Mr. Peterson taught us. On defense, there's a thing called you must protect your bean patch. And what that means is you have a little area of the turf on defense that you must protect. Nothing's going to come in there and take it over for you. And that's what I'm going to talk about tonight, protecting our bean patch. So this could be a help to the Christians in the church now and how we can help others grow. And the first one is the wayside Christian or the wayside ground. And in verse 4 it says, "And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came up and devoured them." So those are those who come to church when it's very convenient for them, but there's nothing really there for them. It's the type of Christian that, we might sit in the pews and we might have a visitor who comes into church, but we don't say anything. We don't help them grow at all. So the first one is just a wayside Christian. It's very difficult for those to influence others for Christ. And then the second one in verse 5 through 6 is in the stony ground. It says, "Some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away." Now those, I believe that a lot of times, someone might come to our church, not because I got them to come to church, but maybe because of a bus worker got them to come to church, a Sunday school teacher, a soul winner. So a lot of times when people come to our church, there's a way for me to influence them, just like Brother Domley was saying, we can influence others for Christ. And so there's a couple types of grounds. The second one is a stony ground. They come, the new person might come to church, they might start getting involved in a little church, but there's no deepness of root there. There's no deepness in the church or getting involved. And that could be because of our part, because we're not helping them get involved, helping them jump in, helping them disciple them. So that second ground of a seventh type of a Christian is the stony ground, the stony Christian. There's no involvement, and when there's no involvement, there's no influence. So if we can, we can help them get influence. And the third one is the thorny Christian, the thorny ground, verse 7. And it says, "And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them." A lot of times, I'm very guilty of it, and I know a lot of us are. When someone new comes, they might not be the most, we might be pride. I'm sure it's pride in our lives that we don't want to go out of our way and talk to them, go out of our way and be a help to them. I know, at college or even on the bus, when someone's new, if we don't think, we're assimilated to them or not, we won't go talk to them. That's that thorny ground where we're just kind of choking their spirit out. If we're not going to go out and be a friend to them and help them grow, we're just going to be choking out. We're a thorny type of Christian where when someone new comes, we're not going to help them all, and we just choke out the spirit. But the last one is, and that's the best part, the last one. And the last one is in verse 8, it says, "But others fell into good ground and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold." Now that's what I want to be. I want to be a type of Christian where I can bring forth fruit. Whether it be 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold, even if it's 1-fold. If there's someone that I can influence the life who reproduces, that's what the type of Christian that I want to be. There's that good ground to where when they come to church, when they come to our church, man, they're plugged in right away. We welcome them. they're not going to have the chance to just wither away and die. They're going to have the chance, they're going to be brought in, they're going to be put in a Sunday school class, they're going to be taught by others and just help. And that we need to make that the center of our lives for when we help others. So there's just 4 types that I went over. Just a wayside ground, those who just come and go really quick. Those of us who might just sit in church, don't have any influence on others. The second was a stony ground. They come for a little while, but then after they come for a couple of weeks, we don't follow up on them. And the third is that thorny ground. We just choke out that spirit. And the last one is that good ground, to where we can be fruitful and multiply.
Sure. Proud of our young men. Jonathan is the nicest guy that'll ever stick you and take you out in a football game. He'll smile through the mouthpiece and help you up and say, "Are you okay?" But anyway, Jonathan, come on up, buddy.
Is this one on now? There it is. There we go. All right. When God comes calling, if God is calling you to do something, just do it. That's how I wanted to start out tonight. Mark 16:15 says, "And he said unto them, Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature."
Amen.
That's a good verse right there. It's a command right there. That's something God tells you to do. Just do it. So, my first point, this is going to be slow. And then I had another verse. James 4:17 says, "Therefore to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin." So if you know something's right and you don't do it, then it's a sin. The point number 1, Jonah. There's 3 type of people that God called that I read about. Jonah 1:1-3. It says, "Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness is come up before me. But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and went down to Joppa. And he found a ship going to Tarshish, so he paid the fare thereof, and went down into it, to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord." Jonah fled from God. Don't be a fleeing Christian. If God calls you to do something, don't flee. Just do it. Isn't it good that we can trust God's strength? We don't have to trust our own. If God wants people to get saved, he'll prepare their hearts for us. He'll make them ready. Point number 2, Moses. In Exodus 3:10, let me turn there real quick. It says, "Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth thy people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." And then Exodus 4:1 says, "And Moses answered and said, But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, The Lord hath not appeared unto thee." And verse 10 says, "And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue." Moses made excuses. Don't be a Christian that makes excuses. If God tells you to do something, don't make any excuses. If somebody wants you to help out in their Sunday school class, don't say, no, try to find a way that you can help out. Don't try to make an excuse like, "Oh, my work won't allow me." You can find a way to get around your work. I mean, wait, what would you rather do? Come help out in Sunday school class or work, That point, don't give excuses. Point number 3 was Timothy. 1 Timothy 4:12. That's the only one I didn't mark. My word. It says, "Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers in word and conversation, in charity and spirit and faith and purity." And what I got out of that was that Timothy was a young preacher. He started when he was young. It doesn't matter how young you are, you can get a passion about God. I've heard about people that started basketball when they're 4 years old and they're about this high. If people can start playing basketball 4 years old this high, can't we start getting some people to preach when they're 4 years old and this high? Can't we get some people to get a passion about God when they're 4 years old and this high? I read a book about Dr. Bob Jones, and it talked about how when he was younger, around 15 years old, he would preach to all of his brothers and sisters at the whenever he had free time, and whenever they didn't listen to him, he would preach to his stuffed animals. So you can preach anywhere. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. That's all I got.
That's great, Jonathan. That's a good thing. And Nathan heading out Tuesday, right, Nathan? Heading off to college, and his family, all these families. That's a great thing to have young people grow up in our church, and teenagers are just the best thing. And I love young people. I've seen young people grow up and do right, and you young people that are heading off. If you're leaving this week, why don't you stand up? If you're heading out for college somewhere, why don't you stand up if we're losing you this week, just to say an official goodbye. All right, God bless you. We're going to miss you guys. There's others around that aren't here tonight, but many often come. By the way, if you're heading off to school and you want to meet me, if you're going to college, if you're leaving for your last supper, I'll buy it In and Out tonight if you want to meet me after preaching, all right? Nathan Patton, come on up, Nathan.
Well, I had the privilege of going on the Philippines trip about a month ago, and my dad came up to me about a week before, and he said, he's like, I would like you to preach in at least one of the village churches. And I got so scared, I was like, man, I really don't want to do it. But on the plane ride, I came up with a sermon, and I was able to be a blessing to this church over there. But then after that, Micah, he was able to preach. He came up to me, he's like, man, you want to go preach at camp? I was like, sure, why don't we? And so we had the privilege of preaching at camp, and then when preacher had us ask a couple guys to preach, and I think I'm a little bit more nervous up here than at camp, but I'll try and do my best. But I'm going to start out in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. And it says, I have fought a good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith. And verse 8, henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, not to me only, but unto all them also that love his appearing. Back in Hebrews 12:1, it talks about a race that is set before us, and how we're supposed to lay aside every way, and how and the sin that besets us, and how we're supposed to run that race with patience. But going back to 2 Timothy, Paul is telling Timothy that he has fought and kept the faith while he was running this course. And in verse 8, he talked about that he laid up a crown for me of righteousness. But tonight I'm going to talk about ending the race on a good note. And that good note is what Paul said at the end of verse 7. It says, I have kept the faith. And reaching the end of your race, saying that you have kept the faith. And, my first point I start out with is having a plan. In Nehemiah 4:6 it says, so build we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. It says that they had a mind to work. They had a plan. Their mind was set towards something, and they were going to finish it, and they were going to doing it no matter what it took. And you can't do anything without having a plan. You can build a building without plans, but you can go out and start digging holes and start doing stuff, but you can't do the next step without having plans. And you can't go anywhere without planning ahead with directions, and have a plan. And God has a plan for us if we're willing to accept his plan. Point number 2 is have a passion. And who had a better passion than Jesus? No matter what he did, Jesus was always serving others. His love for children, teenagers, his disciples, adults, the lame, the lepers, and whoever else, Jesus had a passion. No matter what we do, we should learn to live like Jesus and have a passion like him. Point number 3, have a purpose. In Daniel 1:8 it says, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested all the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Daniel purposed in his heart that he would do what God wanted him to do. Daniel was there to prove something. He was there to tell the people of Babylon that he was going to stand up, and no matter what it took, he was going to stand for God. And Daniel was stripped of his home, his family, and his freedom, and it wasn't going to stop him from doing what God wanted him to do. Daniel stood for doing right, and even though if no one else was going to. And Daniel prayed even though he was told not to. And he already knew what he was going to do, because he had a plan, he had a passion, and he had a purpose. And my last point, number 4, is realize you're not alone. In Proverbs 18:24, it says, a man that hath friends must show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticketh closer than the brother. That friend that sticketh closer than the brother is God. And if we let God on our side and we do it instead of doing it our own way, God will be on our side, and we can keep running this course. So if we just keep those 4 points in mind, having a plan, having a passion, having a purpose, and realize we're not alone, will allow us to let us run this race.
That's it. Thank you, fellas. That's a little intimidating, but now they're really thankful they're done. And anyway, glad you're here. Let me we're going to have a song from the choir.